From our 22 News Broadcast Center, this is 22 News in Focus. Today, Decision 2014, a debate with Democratic candidates for the office of Hampden County District Attorney. Here's Barry Krieger.
And welcome to the 22 News debate among the 4 Democrats running for Hampden County District Attorney. The primary race is a very important election this coming Tuesday because whoever wins this primary will likely become the next Hampden County DA because there is no candidate from an opposing political party on the ballot this Tuesday or in November. The candidates participating in today's debate are Brett Vottero and Anthony Gulluni, Shawn, Allyn, and Hal Etkin. The debate will begin with each candidate delivering a 1-minute opening statement. And to be fair, I must urge the candidates to stick to your times. Order was determined by a drawing, and we begin with the 1-minute opening statements with Anthony Gulluni.
Hi, my name is Anthony Gulluni. I'm a candidate for Hampden County District Attorney. I'm a lifelong Springfield resident, and I've been a prosecutor for about 6 years. I worked for Bill Bennett, and I've worked for Mark Mastriani until his departure for a federal judgeship. Before my experience as a lawyer, I was a youth diversion counselor for the Salvation Army. I've taken those experiences and I've presented a platform for district attorney. I've worked hard as a campaigner. I've shown people my experience and my background for district attorney. I want to bring those experiences to focus on prevention and prosecution as district attorney. It's going to be critically important to the future of this county that we focus on helping young people, keeping people away from drugs, and keeping people safe by swift and aggressive prosecution. I'm happy to be here. I hope you'll consider me and listen to my standpoints. Thank you.
We will now hear a 1-minute opening remark from Brett Vottero.
Good afternoon. I'm Brett Vottero. From the beginning of this campaign, our message has been that experience matters. Voters in Hampden County have consistently selected experience over political connections or endorsements when it comes to the DA's race. My opponents have acknowledged that my courtroom experience is unmatched. I'm the only candidate to have taken a murder case to trial. I've supervised and prosecuted countless murders and taken 17 of them to trial myself, obtaining 15 convictions. But my experience is beyond the courtroom. I've managed people as well, supervising assistant district attorneys at all levels of the office, from new lawyers to experienced trial attorneys. And I've led an international organization with staff and volunteers in 60 countries. I've administered as well, developing applied information technology. In short, I have the experience that's necessary to lead this key office.
We will next hear an opening remarks from Hal Etkin.
My name is Hal Etkin, and I'm running for district attorney because I believe the district attorney's office needs a new approach to fighting crime. The district attorney's office needs to be proactive in preventing crime before it happens and protecting the public from violent and serious offenders. I have 29 years of criminal justice experience. I was a police academy director. I was an assistant district attorney. I was chief prosecutor of the child abuse unit. I was assistant city solicitor. I was a college instructor, and I also maintain a private law practice. I also have the trial, managerial, and life experiences that have given me the confidence and ability to lead the office. Too often we hear in the news of another terrible crime in Hampden County. Things are getting worse, not better. My promise to you, if you elect me as district attorney, we would turn things around. Thank you.
And we will now hear a 60-second opening statement from Shawn Allyn.
Good afternoon. I'm Shawn Allyn, and I'm also running to be your next Hampden County District Attorney. I'm an outsider from the District Attorney's office, and I'm looking in, and I'm seeing what many of you at home are seeing, and that is our criminal justice system needs reform. And I'm going to use my 20 years of having worked in this system to reform our criminal justice system here in Hampden County. We need to change our focus, and we need to do things differently. One is we need to treat nonviolent drug offenders in a different manner, help them access treatment. We need to get the guns out of the hands of criminals. We need to prioritize our cold cases and get justice for those families that have waited decades for getting justice. And we need to reorganize the office and make the office reflect that of the members of the community in which we live.
All right, thank you. A few words to explain the format of today's debate. I will ask a question, and each candidate will have 1 minute to provide an answer. We will rotate in order determined by a drawing that has already taken place. The first candidate to answer the first question will be Brett Vottero. First question is, Massachusetts does not have a death penalty, but if convicted in federal court, which does have a death penalty, would you support a death penalty in the trial of Boston Marathon bombing suspect Dzhokhar Tsarnaev? Mr. Vottero.
That's one of the most horrendous crimes that we've seen, and I understand the number of people that think a death penalty is appropriate. But I've been a prosecutor a long time. I've never supported the death penalty. And one of the things that's important to know about our criminal justice system is it's very effective. It's effective when we use it well. But there are times, and we've seen them in our own office, when an innocent person has been convicted. I led the effort to use DNA to examine the history of cases in the Hampden Superior Court's office to see if there was a possibility that any of our cases had resulted in a wrongful conviction. It's important to remember that the district attorney's responsibility is to pursue the truth. And if that investigation leads us to find somebody's innocent, we drop the charges. Otherwise, we pursue it, we seek the maximum sentence. Life sentence without parole is appropriate in Massachusetts for even those most serious of crimes, including the Boston Marathon case.
Next to answer the same question, Anthony Gulluni.
That is one of the more horrendous crimes I think we've seen in recent memory, and the utmost punishment is called for, short of the death penalty. I am not a supporter of the death penalty at the state level or the federal level for any crime. The district attorney is responsible for all the state prosecutions in the county, and our goal always is justice, always to find the truth. But sometimes, as we have seen, evidence is not always clear. There are errors by lawyers, errors by police. We cannot endanger people with that final and most definite penalty of death with our system. It is a great system, but an imperfect system at times. So I am not a supporter of the death penalty at any level, state or federal.
All right, we will next hear from Shawn Allyn. Same question.
Yes. The number one goal in every case is to seek justice, but I vehemently oppose the death penalty. I don't support it, not even in this case, although this case is horrific given the volumes of families that were maimed and injured and killed. But we know from recent events that the death penalty is not the most viable tool. There's DNA cases that have exonerated people years later after they've been convicted and have been sentenced to life. So our system isn't perfect, and I also think it gives a defendant an easy way out to putting them to death. They should sit in that cell for 24 hours a day and realize every day what they did to the victims, and particularly the victims in this horrific case that you've mentioned.
Hal Etkin, same question to you, sir.
I'm personally against the death penalty due to the fact that it's the ultimate punishment, and if there's a mistake and the evidence was later determined to be wrong, you can never get that life back. However, the federal government has determined that that's a legitimate punishment. And when you look at that crime, what occurred in Boston, and you see the overwhelming proof, and you see the harm done, if the federal authorities, after trying that individual, feel that that's a appropriate punishment, I think we should leave it to the federal law to carry out the death penalty as prescribed by federal statute.
All right, our second question will first be directed to Anthony Gulluni. Solutions are being sought to deal with Springfield's ongoing crime and violence. What are your ideas, and what are we seeing a changing time where urban violence is becoming more prevalent everywhere? Mr. Gulluni.
As a lifelong Springfield resident and a resident of Forest Park, which unfortunately has been one of the areas most affected by recent changes, I think our approach has to be prevention and prosecution. We cannot prosecute or jail our way out of the problem. It is going to be critical that the district attorney's office leads the charge in getting to young people, getting to people before they come into the courthouse, engaging in prevention, intervention, and those kinds of solutions that hopefully change people's lives before they make it to the courthouse. As a youth diversion worker, I saw how those kinds of programs can affect young people's lives, how it can supplement maybe the lack of structure in the home, the lack of direction at school. That's going to be important to changing the city of Springfield, the city of Holyoke, and the entire county. I think swift and aggressive prosecution is also the answer. We have to, as the district attorney's office, perform that fundamental function of swift and aggressive prosecution of cases that involve violent and repeat offenders.
Next answer from Shawn Allyn.
And Barry, that's a great question. If we're ever going to do anything in this county to resolve the crime rate, to make that crime rate be reduced, we have to first start with the juvenile court. We have to reform the juvenile court from the ground up. My 5 years, half-decade as a social worker, tells me what causes crime, what brings young children into the courthouse, to the front door. And generally, it's substance abuse, domestic violence, poverty, and a dysfunctional family at home. And I know that because I've serviced that population. When a young individual comes into the system, the district attorney has to sponsor programs to look at why they come in, if it's for lack of education, lack of job training, the need for treatment. And we need to offer opportunities for juveniles to go through, doors to walk through other than that of a jail cell, because 72% of every young offender that starts walking in the juvenile court in Springfield comes right back in. The system is broken and it needs to be reformed, and it will be reformed come January.
Etkin, same question to you.
I would like to get in touch with these kids before they get to juvenile court. That's why I'm on the board of directors of the Springfield Boys and Girls Club and the Springfield Drama Studio, because I believe these organizations work in keeping kids out of trouble. But I also believe that the district attorney's office should be aggressive in going after these gang members who feel that they can bring guns into situations and shoot people and hurt people without any fear of law enforcement.
Vottero, you're next.
I live and work in downtown Springfield. And I heard the gunshots the other day on Maple Street just a few weeks ago. And I've said for a long time that Springfield and our other urban areas could be the safest communities in the nation if the people who knew what was taking place felt comfortable speaking up about it. There isn't one solution to this problem, but when I was chief of the homicide unit in the DA's office, we aggressively responded to cases where people were refusing to cooperate with the police, where witnesses and even victims of shootings insisted they didn't see what happened and they didn't know. It's the district attorney that can respond to that. We need to use the grand jury's authority to investigate those cases. We need to do it promptly. We cannot allow ourselves to become a society where the people who are victims of the crimes and witnesses, the street gang members, are deciding which cases get prosecuted and which ones don't.
All right, our next question will be directed first toward Shawn Allyn. Families Against Mandatory Minimums surveyed all of you recently. Please explain your position on the repeal or reform of mandatory minimum criminal sentences for drug offenders. Mr. Allyn.
I oppose mandatory minimum sentences. They do no good and they destroy lives. When we look at a nonviolent drug offender that's being incarcerated, first of all, we know it doesn't work, incarceration. We have 200 citizens dead in Hampden County in Massachusetts over the past year. 30 of them have come from this region. 19 of them have been incarcerated, released, incarcerated, and released. We sentence people for half a decade, for a decade. They come out, they have a long criminal record, either a felony or a misdemeanor. They can't get employment, they can't get a driver's license. It makes everything much worse, and we're spending thousands and thousands of dollars on incarcerating people each year. $42,000 on an average to incarcerate a healthy inmate at the Hampden County House of Corrections, $8,000 to $10,000 to treat a nonviolent drug offender. It's time to change our focus, change our vision. We need to access treatment for nonviolent drug offenders.
Etkin, you are next.
I'm also opposed to mandatories because it has filled our jails up with people who may not deserve to be there after a sufficient length of time. I also believe that we have some very talented judges in Hampden County who are able to weigh the facts, listen to the case as a whole, and make the appropriate sentence. I also believe presently the district attorney has the tools in terms of what charges he makes and how many charges he actually lists in order to come up with the right sentence for that particular defendant.
Vottero, same question to you, sir.
I've consistently opposed mandatory minimums for nonviolent drug offenses. And that is one area that differentiates these candidates. Attorney Gulluni favors continuing that practice. But for 30 years, we've shown that it hasn't been effective. In fact, it's filled our prisons, many with Hispanic and Black Americans who are being incarcerated at rates significantly different than white Americans, despite drug use being the same across all ethnic levels. My proposal, and the one that I gave to Families Against Mandatory Minimums, is that we repeal these as part of a sentencing reform effort. Prosecutors need to have the right to appeal sentences and bails that we feel are too low. Right now, a defendant who thinks the sentence is too tough or the bail is too high has a right to appeal that, but prosecutors do not. So we need to reform these laws to give prosecutors that right and to make sure we end these mandatory minimums that have proven so ineffective.
Anthony Gulluni will be the fourth candidate to answer this question.
Thank you. A very clear distinction has to be made in this regard. There is a difference between those addicted to drugs who are found possessing drugs, suffering from that addiction, and a difference between those folks who are profiting from people's addictions. Those folks who are selling drugs and trafficking in significant amounts of heroin and other poisonous drugs in our community. You know, very often drugs are at the foundation of all street crime, at the foundation of shootings, at the foundation of house breaks, at the foundation of violent crimes of all kinds. I have stood up, as the legislature has, here in Massachusetts, very liberal Massachusetts. Our legislature has given us mandatory minimums for penalties involving trafficking of heroin and crack cocaine, distributing those kinds of drugs. I believe that the people profiting from those people suffering from addiction should be punished. But the people suffering from addiction need to be treated, and they need to be treated as though they have a health issue, not a criminal issue.
Our next question will be directed first to candidate Hal Etkin, and the question is, do you support legalization of marijuana for recreational use, similar to what's happened in other states?
As the issue about legalization of marijuana occurring in other states, I think we need to kind of study that a little further. There's been some negative consequences where people are coming in from other states, buying it and bringing it back to their state to sell it. I think it's too early. I think the advantage of having extra tax dollars, because certainly the states are making money by doing this at this point in time, might not be a wise thing in terms of what additional crime it may generate. I think it's too early to tell. I would like to study the issue a little further.
Brett Vottero, same question to you, sir.
No, I think the advantage of our federal system is we get a chance to see how these changes in law actually impact society. And one of the concerns that I do have about the legalization of marijuana is the increased risk that it may pose to drivers on the roads. For many years, I was responsible for all vehicular homicide prosecutions in Hampden County. And we've seen those even recently, where people who are under the influence of drugs and alcohol are taking lives. So I think we need to watch and see how these states that are moving down this road progress. It's clearly not a major criminal justice issue, and that's consistent with my approach on all drugs. We need to treat substance abuse as a public health issue. Now let's be clear. When it comes to people that sell drugs, they need to go to prison. That doesn't mean they have to be mandatory minimums, but people who sell and traffic in drugs do need to go to prison.
Anthony Gulluni, same question to you, sir.
I think we do have some models from which we can learn out in states like Colorado. We can see how that state responds and the people respond. I think what's critical now about our laws is dealing with the opiate problem. The opiate problem is an epidemic across Hampden County, and I've talked a lot about that. I've been at the forefront of discussing those issues with people and on the campaign trail. The district attorney's office needs to be focused on dealing with the opiate issue, both at the level of prescriptions and at the level where people are beginning their addiction with these prescription drugs. We need to focus on how to get these drugs out of people's hands and discourage the addiction problem that's created. You know, very often marijuana was called the gateway drug. I think that's changed. Now you're seeing prescription opiates becoming the gateway drug to heroin, and it's a very serious problem that the DA needs to deal with in a very serious way.
Shawn Allyn, the legalization question to you.
You know, I think Massachusetts seems to be going in that direction right now. If it's under an ounce, you get a ticket, and there's really no enforcement mechanism if the individual doesn't pay the ticket. But we have to look at the resources we're spending on prosecuting low-level quantities of marijuana cases. And the Colorado model might be something for Massachusetts to take a look at. But I'm certainly going to do what the people of Massachusetts wants, and I'll enforce the law. But we're always going to have legalized drugs such as alcohol. So there will be an enforcement mechanism, and I also have a concern about people driving under the influence of marijuana and other substances as well as alcohol. But that also can remain criminal, but be decriminalized. But I also think we need to refocus what we're doing with nonviolent drug offenders, deal with the opiate epidemic, and treat it as a public health care crisis.
Our next question will be directed first to Brett Vottero. How do you win the trust and support of multiracial and multicultural communities, some of whom do have a level of uneasiness, even mistrust, with law enforcement right now?
It's such a fundamental question to where we are in this community and where we are in the nation as a whole. There are reasons for that mistrust, and we see them played out in the news frequently. The only way that we're going to effectively deal with it is to begin opening up better dialogue. We are a very diverse city, but we remain a terribly segregated community. I've spent my life as a volunteer for an organization that seeks to form close friendships with children from other cultures at a young age. So how do we address this? How do we make these neighborhoods safe and people comfortable speaking to police and to law enforcement? We have to get out in the community. We have to be part of those neighborhoods. The DA's office, victim witness advocates, we need to have a presence there. And we need to begin this dialogue before there are further problems in the streets. That's something that I'll begin working on day one.
We will next hear from Anthony Gulluni.
The foundation is openness and transparency. And as a prosecutor for Mark Mastriani, I worked in community outreach, and I worked as a liaison to the Forest Park neighborhood in Springfield, where I went to community meetings. I dealt directly with the residents, and I dealt directly with the police that were working in that area. And we experienced a great benefit from that. We were able to focus our resources as assistant district attorneys in the DA's office on the problematic areas and the problematic people in that neighborhood. But in so doing, I was able personally, and I think on behalf of the office, to establish trust with residents of all parts of the city and all parts of that particular neighborhood. If I'm district attorney, we will have a community impact team that will go into neighborhoods and have regular meetings with not just community leaders, but with regular folks who have a vested interest in their communities. It's going to be important that we open the doors to the courthouse and the DA's office, but we also walk out of those doors as a district attorney and as assistant district attorneys in getting to people and making sure we establish trust.
Shawn, Allyn, you're next.
We need to change the system with respect to how people feel. We need to make people feel empowered in that they're going to want to have a good working relationship with the police department. My entire adult career I have spent working with individuals that have either have been disenfranchised or feel disenfranchised. As a social worker, I provided direct care services to many poor families, African American families, Latino families. So I know their struggles because I've helped them pick the pieces up together. And as a lawyer, I've represented many disenfranchised people as a public defender, as a civil rights lawyer. And I have working relationships with all those communities. And my message to those communities is, I need you. You don't need the district attorney. And that needs to be the model going forward. And also, the district attorney's office needs to reflect members of those communities. And I mean, come in January, I will be hiring members of those communities. And they will also help me reach out to their own people to develop a better communication system between law enforcement, the district attorney's office, and those groups you've just asked about.
Hal Etkin, you will complete this round of questioning.
Thank you, Barry. If you have distrust between community groups and the police department, it's usually because of a lack of communication or a lack of understanding. The district attorney is the one elected official that can correct that. The district attorney can promote communication by having regular established meetings with all members of the police department. I'm talking about the union, I'm talking about the chief, I'm talking about rank and officers of a particular department and community leaders. The second thing is the district attorney can use his drug forfeiture account to provide programs where the police are actually in the community working with groups in order to build a greater understanding and possibly through that understanding be able to actually prevent crime by learning things from the community groups as to particular crimes that may occur.
Thank you, gentlemen. This completes our first round of questioning here in tonight's debate. We will return to the debate among the Democrats running for Hampden County District Attorney in just a moment.